Hey guys, my name is Chris if you didn't already know, and welcome to my show, SmegChris Review. As you can tell from my shirt, I'm going to be talking about a Marvel film, but first I want to talk about a Marvel show. And the show that I'm going to talk about is Loki. As some of you may be aware, I love time travel stories, and that's what Loki is all about. However, let me just start with some of the bad stuff first. For starters, there's so much talking in those 6 episodes, mainly to explain what's going on, and there's a lot to go through. In fact, that first episode wasn't really that good. The other thing was that this Loki is a variant and not actually Loki, so it didn't feel like you really wanted to invest in the character. Although there was an interesting twist at the end when we find out that the villain that they're after is another Loki. And that's where things start getting more interesting, because we find out that this Loki is actually a woman. However, she goes by the name of Sylvie. When those two characters meet, things kick off a lot. So let me get into the good stuff. We've got some brilliant actors in there. Of course, Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Owen Wilson plays Mobius. However, I love Sylvie, played by Sophia Di Martino. So things picked up after Loki and Sylvie finally met, and I started enjoying the show even more. And as the episodes progressed, I was just getting really into it. Until the last episode. Up to that point, things started getting more flamboyant. We started meeting other Lokis, all these different variations of them, including an alligator. Heck, even Richard E. Grant showed up as one. And that 5th episode was tremendous. All this stuff was happening. I was really engrossed with it because there was plenty of action and plenty of dazzling special effects. And then the last episode happened. I kid you not, it was talking all the way through. Yes, Loki had a little fight with Sylvie near the end, but honestly, other than that, it was just talking the whole way through. And the actual main villain that we meet, who the heck is he? We've never seen him before. We don't know who he is. That's the problem with Marvel films and TV shows, is that they expect us to know who these characters are straight off the bat. No, not all of them. Not at all. I remember at the beginning of Captain Marvel, we were introduced to all these characters and we were expected to know who they were. I didn't have a clue. But honest to God, that last episode, I was nearly falling asleep. Seriously. After all these dazzling special effects, all these action-packed scenes, getting to see all these variations of Loki and other characters who were quite engaging, this final episode just fell flat. And unlike the other Marvel shows, this one actually is getting a 2nd season. And so it was left with it to be continued. Hopefully that 2nd season is going to be an improvement. And maybe, just maybe, this variant of Loki actually becomes the real Loki at the end. Hopefully, maybe. Otherwise, what's the point? And I think that's why I've got a few friends who've told me that they've turned it off, because they just don't really care about this Loki. And I do actually see their point in that. But for the most part, I did enjoy it, so I'm going to keep watching when they get around to doing that 2nd season. I mean, it wasn't as good as WandaVision, but definitely better than Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Right, moving on from Marvel television to a Marvel movie, Black Widow. And I just want to point out that this movie, even though it is a sort of an origin story of Black Widow, it's actually set in 2016. So why didn't we have it in 2016? Seriously, this film is set just after Captain America Civil War. So why didn't we have it then? See, that's another problem with Marvel. They have no clue how to work the timeline. It's so bad, in fact, that Spider-Man Far From Home is actually set in 2024, if you actually look at the calculations properly. Because if you remember in the last Avengers film, it was 5 years later. That's 2024, or is it 2023? I don't know, I get confused with the Marvel films. Anyway, onto the film itself. As per usual, Scarlett Johansson is brilliant as Black Widow, and we get to learn more about who she is from her origins at the beginning. But it quickly flips forward to 2016. We learn that she has a sister. I use air quotes on that because she's not actually a sister, but she is sort of like a sister. It's a whole convoluted explanation. Basically, it starts off where you think there's an American family and they go on the run, and we find out they're actually Russians infiltrating America, and there's a mom and a dad and a sister to Natasha. So most of the film is about her reconnecting with these other characters while there's a lot of fighting going on. And we find out that she's not just the only Black Widow. There's a whole slew of them, who we find out are actually controlled by this one villain played by Ray Winston, which I thought was an odd choice. I mean, I love him as an actor, but he seemed a little out of sorts, like he didn't actually belong in this film. But he wasn't on the screen that much, so maybe that's what the problem was. I have to say though, playing her sister Florence Pugh, She's just a revelation. I've loved her since I saw her in Fighting With My Family. She's definitely a rising star. As per usual with a Marvel movie, there's quite a bit of humour in there. You know, some of the family members bickering. There's quite a lot of action set pieces that I enjoyed. And some of them are a bit, well, out there, but it is a superhero movie after all. What I will say about this film is it's more about family than anything else. Even though the Avengers do get mentioned, we don't actually see any of them, which makes for a refreshing change. See, that's one of the things I've been disappointed with the Marvel films, is they've spent too much time intermingling these films together that it gets a little bit too much. Don't get me wrong, when it first happened with Avengers Assemble, I thought it was brilliant. They've just gone a little overboard with it. In this film, none of that. Although I have to say the post-end credits, it moves forward in time a little to after Natasha's death. Spoiler alert. Which is leading into what I believe is the show Hawkeye. But I have to say this film isn't all that great. It's definitely not the best Marvel film. Actually, far from it. There are moments where there's that much talking going on and reconnecting with family members that it was getting a little tedious. You know, Natasha's talking to her family saying, oh, I have this other family and blah 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 this and blah blah that. And I'm just there going, hurry up. But it's definitely not the worst Marvel film, which is why I give it a... So it's not all bad. Just not all great either. And there you go, that's my review of Black Widow. And now it's time for me to go. All that's left for me to say is thank you for watching and subscribing if you have, and liking this video if you did. Until the next time, peace out. I feel like Marvel are now starting to not scrape the bottom of the barrel, but starting to draw these other characters in that we've never even heard of, and are expecting us to watch them so that when they intermingle into the other films or TV shows, we're supposed to know who they are. That's not going to happen. I already know that there are 2 Marvel films coming up, some martial arts one, and is it called The Eternals? I'm really not interested in them, and that's going to be a problem because no doubt some of those characters will start showing up in the other Marvel projects, and I'm just going to be like, who are they? I don't know them. And I'm not the only one. I know of quite a few people who have done that already. For example, there's a character that shows up at the end of Black Widow that if you've not watched The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you'll not know who she is. And that's my point. So they need to stop doing all this crossing over thing as much as they do. Because let's face it, it's no longer a novelty.